Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, and it is time for another mailbag where I answer your hot takes, your questions, your observations, and ultimately your comments on tennis and other things. About 24 hours ago, I posted in the YouTube community tab, got some great comments there. I also tweeted on my Twitter handle at Gill_Gross. And some great topics here as we hit the ground running in the European clay court swing. It is Belgrade and Barcelona week on the ATP Tour. Monte Carlo is in the rear view. We have Madrid and Rome coming up, and then we're going to have like this weird lull. We're going to have to twiddle our thumbs and wait for Roland Garros, and I'm not sure how we're going to fill that time. But maybe we'll just do a lot of mailbags, and that's how we'll get through it. In general, I've been really busy, haven't been able to do these, but I'm looking to ramp up the consistency on the Friday mailbag. But a lot of exciting things here and some really good topics and some good comments. I am excited to get to them. All right, we'll get things kicked off. Sip of coffee, and let's go. First question comes from Twitter, at LittleWonder168, big Tsitsipas fan. Steph is on a roll. Predictions for rest of his season. Thoughts on why it all suddenly seems to be clicking for him and how it might or might not translate to other surfaces. All right, let's take that one by one. Predictions for the rest of his season. I think he's going to do a lot of damage in the next month. I think it's clear that he's playing some of the best clay court ball out of anyone. It was similar to what Dominic Thiem was showing us in 2019. I remember Thiem won Barcelona, and I just remember he was on a tear. And Nadal was still finding his footing, and it really looked like Thiem was the best clay court player in the field. And right now, Tsitsipas on the eye test looks like the best clay court player in the field. I think he has the track record to kind of back up the idea that he can keep it up, and that in the next couple weeks he can make some deep runs. And ultimately he'll come into the French, and it's going to be about what kind of opportunity might he get. Is he going to get better fortune than Dominic Thiem has had? What will be the state of Dominic Thiem? There will be some a comment on him a little bit later, maybe the next one, I'm not sure, where we'll talk about Thiem and if he can get back up to where he's in top form by the French Open. That's going to be very important for the entire landscape of the Slam. Where will Nadal be at? You know, what Tsitsipas will probably be in a position to do is take advantage of an opportunity if it's presented to him. But that's something that I think has been true for Thiem over the years, and maybe obviously Novak Djokovic for many, many more years. And it's just so happened that, you know, Nadal has gotten up to speed by the second week of Roland Garros, and it hasn't been in the cards to really go all the way there. What will happen for Tsitsipas there? Will he take the next step and make that Slam final? You know, he still has things that he obviously has yet to achieve, but mentally, generally, it's been, for all of these next gen guys, we see that you need to take some lumps. You must, you must take your losses, lose, learn, adjust, lose, learn, adjust, experience those emotions, those feelings, and, self-analyze. And that's why I've always had faith that Tsitsipas was eventually going to become a more headstrong player, become a more match-tough player, and also work on some of the weaknesses that he has. The one thing that I didn't see coming is he's really become a dominant athlete, as I covered on last week's Monday Match Analysis. And if you didn't watch it, I will plug it at the moment. Weirdly low, like YouTube just didn't recommend it. I look at the analytics and the views are kind of low. If anyone missed that, Tsitsipas, Rublev, Monte Carlo final breakdown, check it out. Monday Match Analysis last week. But anyway, yeah, I talked about his athleticism. He's become such an amazing athlete. Really, really key on the slow clay court surface. And ultimately, I think in terms of other surfaces, the return's a problem. The return is not a problem on clay. It becomes a problem on other surfaces. And the question is also the defense diminishes, especially on the backhand side. The defense really diminishes. But the question is, can he play first strike offensive tennis on his front foot and serve well enough to kind of still hold serve at a high enough rate to still do well on fast surfaces also after the clay court season? I'm not so sure. I think that his success will take a little bit of a dip after clay court season. I think that is reasonable to expect. I do think the U.S. Open conditions kind of suit him. I think Wimbledon could be a struggle. I don't love the conditions in Canada for him, in Cincinnati for him. But once you hit the U.S. Open, it does slow down a little bit, especially if you get to play a night session. And we'll see what happens. Predictions for the rest of his season. I'll stick with what I said before the season. Number four in the world when we're all said and done, Stefanos Tsitsipas. He's gotten his Masters title. I'm not ready to predict that he captures his first major title in 2020. Why does it seem to be clicking for him? Well, one, he finally has his full clay court season. That's huge for him. And last time he had his full clay court season, he did great. In 2019, he won Estoril. He made the final of Madrid, lost to Djokovic. He went to the semifinal in Rome, lost to Nadal, no shame in that. And then he lost the 5-set epic to Stan Wawrinka. In 2020, he obviously came off that stunning defeat to Borna Coric, and then he turned around and lost to Jannik Sinner. Then he ended up losing to Rublev in the final of Hamburg, and then went to the semis, Novak Djokovic. I've talked about that match a lot, but mentally was crap in the beginning, and then physically was crap, unfortunately, at the end. And Djokovic won it in 5 sets. So if you look at the players that he's lost to, Djokovic, Nadal, Wawrinka, Sinner, Rublev, Djokovic, this has been very strong for him for a long time. But there seems to be an extra layer, and he finally won that Masters title, which was alluding to him. Yes, he had a relatively easier opponent in the final than what he's had to deal with in the past, but also he has slowly but surely fine-tuned his mental game. And what has that looked like? I just think that he has picked up enough experience to understand that not every match is life and death. Not every match is career defining. And when things go wrong, the world isn't ending. The sky isn't falling. To expand on that, when it's break point and he has a mid-court forehand and here's a chance, he's got a forehand, middle of the court, it's all set up. He no longer feels like, oh, well, this is my chance. I'm gonna be Wimbledon champion. Here it is. He seems a lot more level. And in the past, things go wrong, you get a little panic from him. Things go right, he gets a little too excited. I just think he has much more a much more calm, confident demeanor. The effort is always there. But dare I say, he's toned down the intensity just a little, and it's helped him a lot. Those are my thoughts on Stefanos Tsitsipas, probably the story of the clay court season thus far. Let us move on now, and just to keep it in mind for those new to the mailbag, I normally spend a lot of time on the first couple questions, and then I start to go a little bit faster. Let's go to Michael Neves. Can Dominic Thiem bounce back from his poor form in 2021? He says he's been struggling with tournament restrictions more than others, and commented that he fell into a hole emotionally after winning the U.S. Open. Absolutely. Let's dig into this. I think it's important that anyone who follows tennis perhaps reads what Thiem said here. He did an interview with Der Standard. I'm sure I sound very American when I say that. But yeah, he did an interview, and if you go on my Twitter feed, I retweeted an English translation of the interview. So you can check that out. But I do want to read a couple of responses. It's all worth reading. It's all, really Thiem opening up. Really, I haven't heard him open up like this. He has not been he's been a very likable guy on tour, and unfortunately, I think the one thing, where you did see his personality was when he got absolutely screwed by the media personnel at the French Open when they kicked him out of the press conference for Serena, and he went, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up Dominic Thiem Serena press conference and it'll come up. But anyway, this is a much more serious matter and a more somber Dominic Thiem, and he really opened up. And obviously, I really hope for his sake that he gets to a happier place mentally. So that's more important than tennis. But let me just read some of this. First of all, kind of the news headline from this is he says, quote, "There are little problems. Now it's my left knee. Last year during the first lockdown, I had the same thing in my right knee. It didn't matter then because there weren't any tournaments and I had all the time in the world to heal it. It's a it's a something crease, congenital crease that comes out in my knees every now and then. The public is just now hearing about it. It takes a few weeks to be pain-free. It's been bothering me since Australia, but it's just a little ache. It'll heal." So that's interesting. Bothering him since Australia. Remember, the foot problem seemed to be an issue against Dimitrov, although he also talked about how in his loss to Grigor Dimitrov, part of it was just coming down from the high that was the unbelievable atmosphere that he played in against Kyrgios. So then he comes out in this sweltering heat with no crowd whatsoever, and it was really hard to kind of get himself going, to get the juices flowing and to be motivated in that match, which you could see. I mean, it was a porous performance. You could see there was something wrong with him there, and he opens up about kind of what was wrong with him. But let me move on now. I want to go to some questions about the U.S. Open victory and how winning that title affected him mentally. He said, quote, "Afterwards, I was in a state of euphoria. The results were still good. I reached the final of the ATP finals in London, but during the preparation for this season, I fell into a hole. We'll see if I can loosen up. I don't know. I hope so." He said, "I spent 15 years chasing the big goal without looking to the left or right. As I said, I achieved it under strange circumstances, but that's not so important to me. In a way, some things have fallen by the wayside. My private life, dealing with other things, broadening my horizons. You have to do something for your head, for your brain. There was only tennis, and I want to change that a bit." So Thiem is dealing with something here that I think a lot of tennis players have dealt with. I just don't think he's alone. I think it's common. You work your entire life. You set out a goal. You achieve the goal. You feel amazing. But then you kind of come down from the high, right? And doesn't that make sense? You work 15 years for something. It happens. It's over. Now you look around. Now what? What do I have? Now what's my purpose? You almost have to re-find your purpose if you're Dominic Thiem. And, Marian Vida, Novak Djokovic's longtime coach, he talked about that after Novak won the French. Andy Murray, after winning his U.S. Open, I think he went on a bit of a slide. Not horrible, nothing major, but I think he went on a bit of a slide. Then he got back on track relatively quickly. But Roger Federer winning the French in 2009. Look, I don't know if these things are related. I'm just going to throw out patterns here. Federer won the French in 2009, and that was kind of the end of his monopoly on, or his duopoly with Nadal. But his dominance fell off after that. A little bit. It might have, causation is not the same as relation, but I'm just giving you relation here. This is not uncommon. Sampras fell off after breaking the years at #1 record. He worked so hard to finish year-end #1 for the 6th straight time. And then afterwards, it was difficult for him to continue to motivate himself. So now Thiem's dealing with this. He'll get through it. He'll figure it out, but it's going to be a process. It's going to take a long time. The question that you ask, Michael, is can Dominic Thiem bounce back from his poor 2021 form? He's going to bounce back. I have no doubt about it. He needs to kind of rethink what he plays for, rethink his goals, reset mentally, take a break, refresh himself, get healthy, and at some point he's going to have a new lease on life, a brand new perspective, and he's going to go back to the drawing board, and he's going to be great. I mean, I would be stunned if that didn't happen. The question is the timing. When's it going to happen? Is it going to happen in time for Roland Garros or not? Quite frankly, I don't think it's that important. I don't think this is a dire situation, 2021 Roland Garros for him. We'll see what happens. The most important thing is that he finds what's going to make him happy here, and he figures that out. All right, 16 minutes, 2 questions. Jeez, Gill. All right, I'm going to pick it up here. Next one from Ollie Patton, 2021. Rublev lost. Ollie, do you change your handle every year? I like that. All right. Rublev lost in the final of Monte Carlo and then in the semifinal versus Hurkacz in Miami. There are other instances, but what is stopping him from getting over that line in order to claim the biggest titles? He seems to be king of the 500s, but sometimes falters in the bigger events. Yeah, so originally I would tell you, well, Rublev isn't really beating the best, the very elite tier on a consistent basis. He's kind of feasting on the lower tier. I actually don't think that's true is the only thing. And I think that if I've peddled that narrative, there might be a little bit of truth to it, but I think it's mostly wrong. Since 2019, Andrey Rublev is 5-4 against top 5 opponents. And obviously his most recent top 5 win is over Rafael Nadal. So I almost want to amend that. I don't really think that Rublev has a problem beating the elite players as much as I may have thought he did, but I think there's a general narrative in all of tennis that Rublev doesn't beat the best players. He only beats the players that he's supposed to beat. It's not really true if you look at it. What is true is that he's not playing great in the biggest events. And I think similar to Stefanos Tsitsipas, Rublev kind of got off to a late start, later than Tsitsipas, but I think similar to Tsitsipas, he needs to take his lumps here. He needs to lose big matches before he can win big matches. It's not uncommon. When he became the favorite in Miami, mentally, he did not handle that match well against Hurkacz at all. The wind was gusting, and he was frustrated after the first 2 points of the match. And I think he was foggy-headed. I think he was trying to make it too good. He felt like he was playing horribly when he wasn't even losing yet. And I just think that mentally he was very, very high-strung in that match. And he needed to go a little bit easier on himself and understand that there were going to be some nerves. Accept it. There's going to be wind. Accept that you're not going to play a perfect match. But Rublev seemed to be battling himself the entire time. I do think that in the match against Tsitsipas, I don't think there's much he could have done. I thought he was going to be outplayed there with the way Stefanos was playing, the level that he brings on clay. And perhaps there was some fatigue factor coming in there as well. I know he just lost to Sinner. He's got to be tired. He needs to reset. He's played way too much tennis. It's probably a good thing that he lost to Sinner, because that loss was going to come eventually early in a tournament. I'm not concerned about Rublev yet in the big events. I think it's a good experience for him. I think the Miami situation was the first time that I think he felt real high-end pressure. And I think that's a good thing for him to feel. He'll be better next time out. Next one is from Nomo Perea. Federer and Nadal have a better forehand and net play than Djokovic. Do you think that will make it too hard for Novak to play shorter points, or do you expect his serve return dominance being his way to combat age? Serve return dominance is going to help a ton. And that was kind of the big takeaway that I had after Australian Open 2021, that Novak's serve was at this incredible level, right? With that being said, it's not going to help him much on clay. So I continue to see a pattern, and I think I've pointed this out since 2019, if not since 2018, that I believe that the gap between Djokovic's level on the quickest surfaces versus the slower surfaces continues to widen and widen and widen and widen. And this would explain it, because on the faster surfaces, you don't need that extra power on your forehand, and you don't need that extra ability to finish points at the net on quicker surfaces. Djokovic's forehand, he can hit through center court at Wimbledon with it. He can do damage with it from well behind the baseline on center court at Wimbledon. It's on center court at the French Open where he's going to get neutralized a lot more often by his opponents, right? That's why that initial battle for who's going to be on the front foot, who's going to start the point better, that initial battle is a little bit more important on the quicker surfaces than it is on the slower surfaces, where oftentimes, you can, the server might start with the advantage, but that advantage is much more easily neutralized or reset, or even that offense is turned into defense a lot easier on the slower surfaces. So my short answer to this is I think serve return dominance is a totally fine way for Novak to combat his age. It's just not going to work really on clay as well as it'll work on grass and the quicker hard courts. Obviously, another part of that is just the serve. The return on investment is diminished on hitting your serve big on clay. So that tool, it's gonna be helpful, just not quite as much on clay is what I would say to that. Next one from Dridribbin7. How do you explain Nadal's current level more precisely of service? It seems worse than in 2019. What do you think about it? Losing to Fanini, Thiem, and Tsitsipas is one thing, but being in trouble against Ivashka and Norrie is another. Well, I do want to point out that he's not losing. Look, I understand. Really shaky match against Ilya Ivashka. Really shaky. Norrie got complicated in the second set. These are not, Nadal should be handling those players a little bit easier. You won't find any argument from me there. But a win is a win. He's doing what he needs to do. And the one thing I'll point out is this. Nadal, after the Norrie match, trained. He trained after the Norrie match. After winning match point, he turned to his box. I've seen him do this before. He turned to his box and he said, "Hey, let's keep hitting." And that's telling his coach or someone on his team, "Hey, go get us a practice court. I'm not done here. I know I just played a match and I won the match, but I need to keep hitting. I need to keep training." I think Rafa kind of relishes this role. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Would he rather be rolling through the field, having no trouble, feeling great? Yeah. But if anyone on tour is going to relish the process of working through the kinks and just trying to kind of get through the rough patches, and I think the serve has been pretty bad, the backhand has been pretty bad, and even the movement and the footwork has looked a little bit inconsistent. All those things, if anyone is going to want to embrace the process of going into the garage and sorting these things out as clay court season progresses, it is Rafa Nadal. He didn't look great in 2014, was never at his best, still managed to win the French. I don't think he's the same guy athletically than he was in 2014. So he needs to be more fine-tuned in order to win. But then, obviously last year, he had nothing coming in. He had a loss to Schwartzman where he couldn't serve at all. He had nothing. And remember also that you have the first week of the French to play best of 5 set matches to get a day in between. A lot can happen in that process. We are still way off from the French Open. It's not really coming up anytime soon. And I wouldn't be too concerned about Nadal yet. Let's go to Andrew Torres. Excited by Roger's decision to participate in the clay season. Would you consider it surprising considering such a short turnaround for Wimbledon? I don't think there's any other option for Federer here. So no, I'm not surprised. Federer's going to play Geneva, Switzerland, which is 2 weeks before the French Open, and then he will play the French. That'll be his clay court season, and then it'll be to grass. And no, I'm not surprised. I thought it was the only decision that he could make. Let me take a sip of coffee here. You know, in 2017, Roger Federer didn't play clay, and it worked for him. But there's such a massive difference, such a humongous difference between winning the Australian Open, winning the Sunshine Double, and then going to play grass court season versus not playing at all. You know, coming in with a loss to Nicholas Basilashvili in Dubai. Like, you can't just expect to be competitive on zero match play. So I thought that in 2019, I know you've heard me say this a bunch of times. 2019, playing clay helped Federer for him to feel the real match pressure, play in front of a crowd, problem solve against opponents, win match points, get through matches, get used to focusing for 3 hours at a time. I know that sounds silly, but you need to practice that. Even if you're Roger Federer, you need to get those repetitions in. The fact that Federer played that clay court season, played well, by the way, and I thought drew some confidence from it as well. I think now Federer's looking to do the same thing. I don't think he needs to win Roland Garros, but if he's going to get through the first week, if he is going to win, 1, 2, 3, 4 best of 5 set matches at least, that is going to be a positive experience for Federer going into grass court season. So I think that it's a no-brainer decision for him to play the French Open, even though Wimbledon is only 2 weeks after the conclusion of Roland Garros this year. It's not ideal. That part is not ideal, but there's no other decision to be made. You don't want to go into grass season with absolutely zero match play under your belt. Next comment is from Solomence Hydrogen. If you were allowed to change one rule in the ATP, which one would it be? I don't get lets. I don't need lets. They seem very artificial to me. Or no, not artificial, arbitrary. They seem arbitrary. What is it about the serve that makes it so that the net is not in play? Every other shot in the net is in play. I just don't understand lets, so I don't need them. I would like for lets to not be a thing. I don't understand them. Serve clock, though. Let me talk about serve clock. It feels to me like before there was a serve clock, the time rule was stupid because there was no transparency. It was up to the chair umpire's discretion. That left human biases to really fester in the calculations of what is a time violation and what is not a time violation. But to make it what it is now, it's gone the other way. There's not enough time. Not enough time. And what I want is an experiment. I want to see if you gave the players 40 seconds, which is plenty, which is too much time, would players abuse it and use the entire 40 seconds, knowing that they can see 40 on the clock? They could. Right now, though, it's not good because after long points, players can't really catch their breath, and it's like it's kind of a distraction because it's like 3, 2, 1, serve. And that's stupid. I don't want to be thinking about the serve clock before a big point in a big match. So I would like them to, I look, again, it's all about experimentation. I would like them to change it to 40 seconds and see if that slows down the matches. If it does, back to the drawing board. I don't know. Maybe go back to 25 in that case. But if it doesn't, then that would be great. So, all right, let's go to Jeff Brandt. Gill, 2 questions. First, how close to the French Open before you lock in an Nadal pick at a rate as high as 75% or more to win it again? Second, could you share more about your own experience in tennis? At what levels of the game did you play and for how long? Nadal question, I won't lock in a pick until I've seen it all. 2019, I don't want to make excuses for myself here, but Nadal had such a shaky start to the clay court season, and then I had a really busy week, the week of Rome, couldn't watch as much as I wanted, and that's when Nadal really found it. But I kind of had an idea going into Rome that I thought Djokovic was playing a little bit better, and I didn't really adjust based on Rome like I should have, and I went with Novak that year. I said if he could go through Thiem, because I thought that might get tricky, and it did, and he never got through Dominic Thiem that year. But that's what happens when you lock in the pick too early in your mind. I kind of had an idea going into or after Madrid, which was too early, and it burned me. So I will wait until after Rome. I will. There will not be a pick in my mind until afterwards, and then I might have to see the draw. So my tennis experience. I knew from very early on that tennis was not going to ultimately be what I want to do in life. I knew that from a pretty early on that I wasn't even going to play tennis in college because I wanted to go to a big school with high major Power 5 athletics so I could cover it. And, I knew I wasn't going to play tennis at the college level either from very early on. So that kind of dictated how I went about things. I trained at a very high level. I thought I got world-class coaching every summer, 5 days a week. I trained. So I played a ton of tennis. It was a huge part of my childhood. I just never really did enough tournament play or tournament travel to actually figure out how good I was. So I would love to tell you this was my UTR. This was my, I was a 2-star. I was a 3-star. I'd love to tell you these things. I didn't play enough to figure any of those things out. So yeah, I was like a really hardcore training guy, but not a competing guy. I don't know. That's just how my tennis childhood was. And then obviously I played in high school. I barely lost in high school. I was on a really good team. I finished with a 32-2 record. And I was like all section, all county pretty much every year. But the level in high school tennis isn't great. So that's that. All right. We're at 33 minutes. Let's wrap this one up with Jose Marino. Why most of the players are not willing to... Actually, 2 more questions, guys. Second to last one from Jose. Why most of the players are not willing to grind with Novak and instead they choose aggressive strategies that just give up unforced errors to Novak. I don't have that much to say on this, to be honest. I mean, if you're referring to a guy like Jannik Sinner, he just doesn't have that other... He is who he is, basically. And that's probably the case for most of these situations. It does take a certain level of player and a certain style of player to be able to grind with Novak. I think this comment comes from a place of seeing the difficult matches that players like Daniil Medvedev, Roberto Bautista Agut, Pablo Carreno Busta, some of these players who have been really willing to dig in physically with Djokovic have given him really difficult matches. And I think the reason Jose asks this question is, well, why doesn't everyone do that? Look, not everyone has the skill set that PCB, RBA, Medvedev at a very high level. Most players don't have that skill set, so they can't be who they're not just because they're playing Novak. I think a lot of players try to transform themselves against these big three players because they feel like, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. But if you're playing out of your wheelhouse, you're not going to reach a high enough level in the first place to actually get it done. So that's my answer. All right, a long one from Karen Montgomery. We will end it here. Something I've recently pondered. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic all got to play an opponent that they were better than in their first Grand Slam finals. Federer beat Philippoussis to win Wimbledon 2003. Nadal defeated Puerta to win the French Open 2005. Although, side note here, editor's note, he did have to beat Federer in the semis. Djokovic bested Tsonga to win the Australian Open in 2008. Since the player they defeated in the final they were superior to, they had a greater chance to win, and in doing so avoided the quasi-mental block of Murray and Thiem in their first several finals after losing their first one. Due to this, I believe Dominic Thiem, the fantastic player he's developed into 2017, really deserved to take on Zverev in the US Open final to get himself over the slam hump, because he had to play 3 slam finals against players better than him before that. Also, in my opinion, Thiem has had much tougher competition to take on than the big three did to claim their first slams. What's your take on that? My take on that is a great take. Thank you, Karen, for outlining the reason why anyone who tries to take anything away from Dominic Thiem and his achievements in the 2020 US Open, lifting the trophy on that unique and strange fortnight, anyone who tries to take anything away from Dominic Thiem is way off the mark. So my take on that is good take, Karen, on the money. All right, let's get to the second part of this comment. Let's not kid ourselves about Nadal having underwhelming lead-ups to the French Open. In 2018, the only clay tournament he lost was to Madrid, to Thiem in 2019. He was coming off another injury in Indian Wells and was feeling depressed, like he said he never has before in his career until Rome, which he still managed to win. In 2020, there was barely a clay season, and he hadn't played in over 6 months. So please, Nadal taking time to work his way into the clay court swing isn't a thing. This is really the first time we've ever seen it. Well, you're giving me reasons here, right? You're giving me reasons. I can give you a reason this year. He's been injured. He had the back injury. He didn't play Miami for a reason. Did he have a training block? Yeah, but he didn't come into, he hasn't had good health at the early stages of 2021. He had to take some time off. So just like you can give me a reason for 2019 that he was coming off an injury at Indian Wells, you can give me a reason for Rome that there was a pandemic and there was barely a clay season. Well, I can still give you an injury for this time. So I would push back on that. I would say, no, we have seen this before. We're seeing Nadal struggle early on in clay court season like we've seen before. There is an explanation. It's not completely out of the blue, but it is what it is. He's got plenty of time to work himself back into form. He's pretty much been able to work himself back into form every single time we have seen this movie before, and now we'll see if he can do the same thing again. I don't think that there's much reason to think that he wouldn't be able to. All right, guys, this has been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Remember that Monday Match Analysis, including the mailbags, is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. That means Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps me, gets attention to the podcast. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Gill_Gross. One of the reasons is that you can comment for these mailbags if you missed the community tab. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I will see you next time.